Okay, I'm finally getting around to starting working on Tim Worthington's NES RGB boards. His online ID is viletim, and it's the Shmups forum where his main thread is that follows this project. And basically what it is this board fits in between the motherboard and the PPU of the NES and will output analog RGB. Instead of using a very expensive Play Choice PPU from a Play Choice 10 or a Versus board, which these in recent times have been selling for 200 plus. I think we'll see prices of those go way down real quick now. But we can get a hold of this board for around $90 to $95 US shipped, and it comes with a bag of parts, and I'm going to get a close-up on all that stuff. But I'm going to try to plug one into my test top loader, and I have a top loader AV Famicom adapter board, which all this does is offset the main board so that it fits inside of the case. This was designed for a front loader NES. So I'm going to break out the macro lens and get a close-up of the board and go through the parts of what's in the little baggie. Okay, before I break out the macro lens, you get a pretty good shot of it without. This is the top of the board. This is where the PPU is going to go, and all our outputs. The bottom of the board has virtually nothing. That's pretty impressive, really. I think if I had designed this board, there would be a lot more traces on the bottom. But it's pretty ideal to get them all on one side. Looks very nice. I don't think Tim soldered these himself. I could be wrong, but it looks like it's been professionally assembled, and that's fine. Okay, and then here's what you get for, I think it was $8 Australian. Just a simple board to offset the main board and some headers. These are the square headers. These are the exact same headers I use for a lot of my projects. And the bag of parts. Looks like we got a dual wipe 4-throw 4-position switch. This is used for switching between the different collar palettes available on the main board. There's regular composite palette, garish, and something else. And one of them is supposed to be the Play Choice 10 palette, and then one of them is supposed to be the palette from FCEUX or something like that. Be interested to check all that stuff out. More pins and sockets, headers and sockets. These are the turn pin sockets, exact same thing I use also. And these are round pinned headers that fit into the turn pin sockets really well. I've got a bunch of these on order. I finally found some on eBay for cheap, from China of course. Let's see, external voltage regulator. This is one of the main things I'm going to be testing with this project, is how necessary this is. On the front loader, it may be more necessary than on the top loader, mostly because we have a gigantic heatsink on the top loader, and the front loader actually does not have that big of a heatsink. Definitely will be upgrading from the 1 amp 7805 to like a 1.5 or 2 amp 7805 in the top loader and front loader if I don't use this. But I'm going to run through a bunch of tests on amperage draw and probably break out the thermal camera just to see how hot the heat sinks are getting. We have a couple mini DIN circular connectors. On the right we got an S-Video jack, and on the left is an RGB jack. This is what the Sega Genesis Model 2 or Sega Mega Drive Model 2 uses. And then we got a little adapter boards for those. This video, nicely labeled. And the RGB one. So we got RGB. V might be composite video, I guess. And then we have 5 volts and ground. So not the most ideal jack. Like the one that I plan on using a lot is the SNES multi-out. This one is ideal for Nintendo for a few reasons. Other than it has a lot more connections. It's got RGB, sync, 2 ground pins, the 2 pins for S-Video, and a pin for video, a pin for 5 volts, and then a pin for right and left audio. So for that reason, this one's probably going to be more popular in the US, and we can get SCART cables, Euro type SCART cables for these real easy. And then also in the parts bag is a stereo audio panel mount connector. Looks like it will screw in from the back of the panel, which is fine, but I'm not sure how often I'll use this. If I end up using this, of course I'll have to use something like this, although I already have a TRS jack that I use quite often. Similar to this one. This one has 4 contacts, one for composite video and one for right and left audio and one for ground. And I have one exactly like this with just 3 contacts for ground and right left audio. But it's yet to be determined what all we're going to end up doing on different customers are going to order different things. So I'm going to break out the macro lens here and just get some close-ups of the main board. Okay, this is just the PPU area. And all our output connections. I believe this is the RGB to S-Video and composite video encoder chip. And then here's the FPGA, external RAM. Not sure what all those do. Maybe line level converters. This might be audio stuff. Not sure. See if I can zoom in a little bit here. Yep, lost it. As you can see, that is very, very finely soldered. Don't have any issues there. Looks good. I'm going to start putting one together. Okay, so there it is, all soldered down. It's sitting up way high because this board actually has machined turn pin sockets on the main motherboard here, and then I actually have a dual wipe inserted into that for a couple different reasons, but that will not actually not be there. It'll just be a dual wipe on the main motherboard when I do it with other people's, but this is just how my test top loader board happens to be at the moment. So that's kind of what it looks like from the side, and then you can kind of see how it's hanging off to one side over here. Not the greatest thing in the world, but I think it'll be okay. I don't think it's going to hurt anything. So now I'm going to solder on some leads onto the outputs here and test it on the old PVM. Okay, so I'm up and running. There are 4 jumpers on the main board that you need to be aware of. 3 of them are changing between NTSC and PAL, and one of them has to do with power. Jumper 3 is power, and to do NTSC, you have to solder jumper 5, which is over here. And to do PAL, you have to not solder jumper 5, and 7 and 4 have to be soldered. Where did 4 go? Okay, 4 and 7. So, and then the switch over here, switch between different color palettes. I believe I'm on natural. And then if I go one over, I'll do improved. And then one more is garish, which from what I'm seeing on the camera versus the TV, like the white only looks slightly yellower in garish, but on the actual monitor in real life it looks much reddish yellow. I don't know. That looks pretty standard. Let's see, I'm in normal, improved. Oh my god, huge. I'm gonna set this down. Huge difference if you ask me. And this will be garish, which is play choice 10. It's actually, I don't know, this looks very purple to me, which is definitely play choice 10. And then that's improved. That looks amazing, actually. I could stick to that title screen a little bit there for a little longer. Normal actually looks a little purple, actually. Yeah, I would say improved is amazing. Wish I had a better capture device than this. Let's try some other stuff. Mike Tyson's Punch Out. Oh, look at that thing. Let's see if that stays. What? And I'm still in improved. That was weird. A lot of lines outlining everything. I switched to regular, they're still there. I'm gonna reset that. Let's turn it off and turn it on. Still improved. Hey, the line's gone. What the hell? And some flicker up there, but not like it used to be. Play choice 10 actually looks the best there. And improved, natural, and play choice 10 or garish. It's still coming back in natural. Improved, natural, and play choice 10 or garish. Actually, garish looks the best here as far as the greens go. It's improved, natural, play choice 10, garish, improved, natural. What I don't see much difference in is the blue background behind Glass Joe. Natural, improved, garish. The character himself changes a little bit. Okay, anyway, yeah, it looks absolutely perfect. One major thing I need to test is power pack compatibility. Perfect. Or not. Shit. Okay, I don't know why it didn't work. Uh-oh. Game froze. Game froze and my character is showing some glitching. Could be a power draw issue, but froze immediately. Heat shield is not hot. It's barely warm to the touch. So yeah, we may have an issue. Let's see, test ROM. It's all working. Let's see. Break out the dog bone here. Yep. All the colors are changing, flashing. This might be a fun one to watch. Let's see, what are we looking at here? That interference is not there. I'm not really seeing in the camera here. Okay, that's kind of moving. I am in improved. This is garish. This is natural. Almost wish I could get it to not change. Improved. Garish. Okay, so EverDrive. Seems to be working. Yep. And I do not have save state mappers on that, so I can't reset it, soft reset it. What happened? Even lost the lights on the EverDrive. Oh my. Please don't tell me anything with a mapper is doomed. You know what? I think Abadox either corrupted ROM on this or it just didn't want to run on the EverDrive. But Zombie Hunters seems to work. Pixel perfect. I'm in play choice or a garish mode still. Improved. Natural. Ugh. Really? Improved is a huge improvement over natural. But Garish versus improved. Kind of be personal taste. You can kind of make out some of the darker green in the bushes better in improved over garish. The tree looks, I don't know, a little more real and improved. It looks too much of a difference in browns and natural. But it does seem to work. It'd be nice to have a list of like a folder with one game of each kind of mapper, just to be certain, which really this NES RGB board has nothing to do with interfering with mappers and stuff, you would think, so shouldn't be that big of a deal. But I am curious why Power Pack is having such a problem. Let's find a different game here real quick. Ten-Yard Fight's an in-ROM game. Loaded right up. Seems to be working okay. I don't have the audio hooked up, so there's no reason to try the expansion audio just yet. I am hooked up through my multi-out to SCART here temporarily. Wasn't sure if I'd like these pads to solder to over the vias to solder to, but now that I think about it, it's probably a really good idea because you can solder and unsolder wires to the pads, and on the vias you basically have to desolder the vias and get the solder out of the holes to solder new wires to it, which I won't have to do this way. But one thing I wanted to test is I want to cut my jumper here. I am currently powering it through the top loader through pin 40. I'm going to cut that jumper and hook up a multimeter to it and see what kind of amperage the NES RGB board is drawing. And then I might even go so far as to figure out what the whole machine with a power pack or EverDrive or whatever is drawing from the 7805 directly. It may not even be necessary that we need to put a 1.5 amp in there, which I'll probably do anyway just because it's a cheap and easy upgrade. And you would think a 1.5 amp capable regulator would run cooler than a 1 amp capable. So I'll get started on that. Okay, so first quick test is to see how much the RGB board is pulling, and it looks like it's right at 98 milliamps. Climbing a little bit. I wonder if I would oh, I bounced off. Let's see, I'm at 101.8 on a full blue screen. I wonder if it would go up if I was on a full white screen, but I'm not really sure how I'd make that happen. Seems like I'm seeing 114-15 range. I'm at 103 right now. White screen, let's see. Kirby? Yes, I really need to redo my my ROM sorting here. Bad file header. Oh shit. Oh, never ran into that before. It's not letting me soft reset it by holding the A, B, and start. I definitely need to organize these in different folders. Somebody already has a set out there like that, and I just never bothered to change it. Well, even right now I'm at 106, and it's about a half white, half black screen here, so. $109, $107, $109, $112. You figure out how to leave that light on. Does this ROM not work either? I wonder if it would work better on the EverDrive. I'm not even sure if I have Kirby's Adventure in my US folder. No. Somehow or other my ROMs got really messed up when I put them onto this SD card. Something with a white screen. Nothing comes to mind. Felix the Cat. It seemed like somebody was saying something about this ROM as well. I think this is the one that I used to test for jail bars because of the nice background. Yeah, not what I was looking for. I don't know, let me poke around a little bit here to see if I can find something that's all white. Okay, I found a Kirby's Adventure ROM on the EverDrive. Close to 110. It's about as high, just over 110 right there. So, about the same as the Power Pack, I guess. So that's the draw of the NES RGB board. 100 milliamps is not much. I have I mean the Sony CXA 2075M draws 100 milliamps itself. You know what I mean? So this one's doing really good for power draw. And no, it's still just warm to the touch. So it really may not be necessary to do much power upgrades for this. Although I think this is going to be necessary to have this switch available for everybody so they can choose the different palettes based on their personal preference. And see now in this one, wow, that just went really weird. Natural almost looks best in Kirby's Adventure. Garish is too yellow. Good stuff. Okay, so this is how I'm going to test current draw of the whole machine. I'll put the regular carts in there with EverDrive and Power Pack. But I basically, the red is the input voltage to the regulator, and then the yellow and white will go over to the meter, and then of course black is ground. I did it this way just so I could keep the regulator hooked up to the heatsink. Well, I seem to have really screwed something up here. I'm getting a really crap image. It doesn't matter what palette I choose. I seem to only be getting parts of blue. I've set up a second meter to read the input voltage on the regulator. I was just kind of curious of what kind of drop was happening across the diodes and stuff. And I'm pulling 355 milliamps total with this cart. And it's not the cartridge. I don't know what to do with that. I'll have to fix that before I move on here. I may have found the problem. I don't know if you can see the meter or not. Doesn't really need to, but I'm only getting 3.7 volts on the RGB board. But I have 5 volts coming out of the regulator to white, and then I drop down to, depends on if I play with it. It's just all the connections in order to read amp draw or causing voltage drops. And I get about 4. I guess you're not really seeing what I'm touching here. Just touching the various alligator clips here. I only get 4 volts on that one, 4.8 on that one. Somehow, a hell of a voltage drop here. I have to refigure out how to measure the current draw on this. Well, I'm on the right track. I took the alligator clips off of the current draw meter. If I touch the right leg of the regulator directly to a 5 volt spot on the NES RGB board, I get a better picture, but I'm not getting everything yet. And I have my voltmeter on the left reading the 5 volt rail. I still only get 4.2, so I'm still having a hell of a voltage drop here with all this stuff. But it's currently drawing 373.4 milliamps total. Maybe it'll be a little bit more if I can get more voltage to it. Okay, and I'm going to go for a whole different way of powering it. I really do need a good power supply for doing this stuff, but I'm going to use that station to do this. I'm going to try to feed 5 volts into it, as well as measuring current draw, and then I'm also going to try to get a voltage reading off of it, of course, to make sure I'm actually. The good thing about it is I can actually dial up the power supply to 5 volts. Okay, it's working. Drawing about 387 milliamps. But the NES RGB board seems to work on like 4.5 volts. I mean, I've still got a bit of a voltage drop just from the power supply through, all the clips and everything going to the 1272 measuring current draw. But I don't know. Let's see. I'm going to try to turn it up. Excuse my arm. To full 5 volts. Super touchy. Okay, 5.06, and yes, the amperage draw did go way up. 407 at 5.07 volts, which I rarely see over 5 volts. on a stock regulator on an NES or top loader. If I see 4.9 anything, it's working. So now I want to try power pack. You don't really need to measure voltage again. What happened? Why am I not measuring amp draw? 4.66 volts. I must be way over. Okay, slide it into the amps. Okay, so I'm down. Oh, now I've got over 5 volts. Let me bring that back down here. Okay, 5.08 volts, and I'm drawing 526 milliamps. If I make you see it any better, I got kind of a glare on the meter heads there, but it is working. Switching color palettes obviously doesn't do much of anything. Okay, so how about the EverDrive? .06 5.049 volts, 489 milliamps. So apparently quite a bit less draw for the EverDrive. Wow. However, even with the power pack, max we're drawing what, 600 milliamps? Stock regulator would more than handle that, I would think. I mean, especially on the top loader with that giant heatsink on it. I mean, that's a very huge heatsink for 600 milliamps, I would think. So, I'm thinking for top loaders, I don't know that we need the external regulator. I'd still upgrade to 1.5 amps just for fun. Just because even the original 7805s don't hit 5 volts exactly. You know, like I said, if I see over 4.9, you know, the console works, but that just means the regulator could be giving out or slowly dying, or it just never was up to snuff to begin with. I'll also be adding some thermal paste in between the regulator and the heatsink on front and top loader. One guy has posted how to add a second heatsink onto the front loader. I don't like the way it's oriented. I think he should orient it the other way. He has it wrapping around the main capacitor. Well, that's just going to heat up the capacitor. That's not what you want. If you would just flip it the other way and wrap it around the heatsink, it'd still act as another heatsink and wouldn't heat the cap. That's the only thing I'm really worried about. The other thing that I kind of wanted to try, but now that I've had to do all this business, that's just not really going to happen, was we could even try to put a low dropout regulator in there and feed it less voltage. Less voltage means less heat generated. And for the most part, most people aren't going to want to go through all that hassle. And now that I know it's really only using about 600 milliamps, I don't think it's going to be worth all the hassle to do such a thing. But I don't know. So far, we're in good shape. So let's move forward. Okay, I think I'm going to let it run for a long time with the power pack, trying to draw as much milliamps as possible. I am running it with an original NES AC adapter, so I'm feeding it 9 volts AC. Now that I think about it, I probably should have tried to play a game on the power pack while measuring amperage, but too late now, yeah? Oh, I forgot. Abidox is going to freeze, right? Whoa, it's not freezing now. What happened? I didn't change anything. I don't think. Okay. Well, that's good, I guess. So I'm just going to let it cycle through the intro. See what's up. Just out of morbid curiosity. Make sure the 5-volt rail is still at 5 volts here. .006. Perfect. Very perfect. Makes me want to believe that I almost don't have a stock regulator in this one, because, like I said, I never see exactly 5 volts with those. So anyway, I'm going to let that run for maybe even a few hours, although it'll probably get up to temp fairly quickly. I'm talking about the heatsink. Heatsink will probably get up to temp fairly quickly and then stay there. Letting it run for any longer probably won't make it hotter. And I'm not really sure of anything else I could add to it. LED would only add 20 milliamps, which I do usually add an LED to the top loaders. It's a popular mod. Another thing I was worried about was how close the edge of the NES RGB board is to the cartridge. When I go to put on the top shell, I'm worried that this piece right here is going to hit the NES RGB board. But then I noticed that the adapter board is offsetting it towards the cartridge. And if that adapter board does nothing more than move every single trace, or every trace is there to move every single pin over, then I should be able to flip it upside down and actually move it away from the cartridge, if I'm not mistaken. I wish I would have caught that in the beginning. I would have soldered it differently to test it. Unfortunately, that's my only adapter board at this time, but I think that would work. Might even have Tim drop a completely different adapter board just for the US top loader, so that we can center it perfectly, you know, from side to side as well. But other than that, I'm going to let it run here for a while and come back and get the thermal camera out and check the heat. Okay, so the game is still running fine. It's been an hour. And right now I'm pointed at the bridge rectifier, and I'm getting upwards of 200 degrees Fahrenheit. But the heat sink looks like it's mostly 95 to 100 degrees. Can't quite get at the 7805, but I'd say if that's it, then it's 140 degrees. Yeah, that looks like where it's at, but looks okay. And if Tim wants to see anything on his RGB board, that's the PPU running about 130. Seems normal. That is probably the cartridge, and then let's see, that looks like it might actually be the RAM. about 112. Looks like the FPGA is hardly doing anything. I believe that's the encoder, RGB to S-video and composite. 128, 130, 133. That's about all the heat generation. Maybe one of the line level converters right there working at 111. And that might be like 3.3 volt power supply right there, I'm not sure. Right about 110. But yeah, nothing too serious.